morning.
All right. We are going to continue in our series called Not So Superheroes. You're probably wondering, why didn't you just do a Mother's Day sermon? Hey. And to be honest, most mothers are superheroes. But we'll say, for the sake of this, if you're visiting with us, we like to start in a way sometimes that gets us ready to receive a message and to shake off some of the things that maybe we came in with. And so I give you the opportunity to laugh at me or with me. I take either. And so I was told this story one time. A little boy, it was Mother's Day, and he wanted to surprise his mom. And so he planned this most amazing breakfast in bed. And so he got everything ready, put it all on a tray, and he walks upstairs and he presents it to his mom. His mom starts to notice it's a bowl full of Fruit Loops overflowing, some burnt toast with chunks of butter on top. And she looks at it and goes, this looks great. Does what every good parent does and takes a big bite and looks at that toast that's just nice and crispy, the way we all like it, with black flaky goodness all over it. And then she looks down and sees this mug full of coffee. And she can see the grains kind of floating in there still. And the son looks at mom and says, "Are you going to have some of your coffee?" She's like, "Oh, it's so good. Don't worry, I'm not ready for it yet." "No, Mom, I made it just the way you like it." And so she goes, "Oh, okay." So she picks the coffee up and starts to drink it and realizes there's something hard in there. And she looks down and she's like, "What is this?" And there's some of his little plastic green soldiers in it. And she says, "Son, what are you doing? Why is there these green plastic soldiers in this cup?" And he says, "Well, Mom, I thought the best part of waking up was soldiers in your cup." Thank you. Be here all day. Welcome. As you're sitting around at your Mother's Day tables, you can tell that joke. I don't mind. So if you didn't know what our church was about when you came in, now you do. This is how we do it. Anyways, we've been in this series called Not So Superheroes about how God uses some very imperfect people to do some great things. And we've been doing the story of Moses for a little bit. We started with Moses' backstory of the young men that were born to the Israelites during this time in Egypt. They were growing at too big of a rate, and Pharaoh wanted them to be dead. We got to stop this from happening, so they were taking out young boys. I got to say, there is a very courageous mom in the story who would hide this young boy until he was old enough, until she couldn't anymore, and sends him down a river. There's also a very courageous daughter of Pharaoh. She did not have to adopt this boy into her household, but she had compassion on him, pitied him, and took him in. This is the start of Moses' story. It gave him an identity disorder, but it also gave him life. That the two most important women in his life were his mother and the daughter of Pharaoh. Without these two women, he would not have been able to do all the great and awesome things that Moses does. Last week we talked about Moses, like most of us, does not find himself worthy to be in the presence of God or to do what he wants. And so no matter, even if it's a burning bush that tells you you need to go and do things, our excuses are way better than that of how we shouldn't be the ones that do that, right? We say things like, "No, I don't speak well. They won't listen to me. Why would God use somebody like me? I just murdered somebody." He doesn't say that, but I know that's on his heart. I'm running away from my past. I don't want to go back to it. And many of us, at some point in our life, have been running from our past and maybe still are. It is amazing how God works, and sometimes in the midst of your retreat, calls you back to return. I am here as living proof. I too started here as a young man and ran away from doing ministry, and God called me back to be here. And I don't know why I said yes, because I had plenty of excuses why I should have said no. But I realized that excuses don't work, and that God will make it a way regardless. And that's kind of our story of the day. As we finish up part 3, I could literally do like an 8-part series on Moses because his life is awesome. You should totally read it. It's tragic, it's great, it's depressing, it's encouraging, Has all the things that would make a great movie. Maybe Charleston Heston should be. The young ones are like, The old ones are like, yeah, Charleston Heston. Moses' story is awesome because it should reflect you. We here, for those who don't know, he played Moses. I had to get clarification. Moses should reflect a lot of who we are also. That we know we are unworthy, but God still finds something great to call you to. And what's great for you may look to somebody else as like, okay, cool, you open a door for somebody and help somebody across the road. That's awesome. But for the person you do that to, it's like, wow, nobody has done this for me and you really care. When we go to Eschaton, we see this group that goes out and presents church to some of these men and women who are in this nursing home. Not all of those people get visited, often at all. And they light up when we are finished with service and we actually sit with them and talk with them. God calls you to do some things. And when you really want to know when it's from God, it's when you're super uncomfortable. And for Moses, that was going back, talking to a Pharaoh who wasn't his adoptive grandpa. It was a different one. And to tell him, hey, I'm kind of going to need to take God's people with me. That would be a really scary thing to do. So we're going to look at some of this. There's some practical things that I think we need to know in this story as well. Moses pretty much said, I'm not going to go, I'm not going to go, I'm not going to go. And God says, I'm going to give you everything you need to know. I'm God, you're going to be fine. Okay, I'll send your brother with you. Okay, get out of here, kid. He's not really a kid, but that's what he does. And he goes on his way. He goes back to start this journey. There has to be said that Moses has, I'm giving you the Super Reader Digest version. You don't know that Cliff Note version. What's the other one that they do? Some kind of, there you go. I'm giving you the cheap version, like when you didn't really want to read the book in school, but you needed to pass the test. I'm giving you this much. Go back and read all of this story, please, and then come back, let's talk about it. So if you don't know the story, Moses goes back. Pharaoh doesn't want to let people go. He does this incredible plagues that come and hit them. You got locusts, you got frogs, you got water turning into blood. You get firstborn boys just laying out dead. That's the turning point. That's when you kind of know, ooh, this guy means business when he's killing a whole group of people. This is where we're at. Pharaoh finally says, okay, take your people. What God does in this story that I need you to all hear is not only does he work in Moses, who has been given excuses, he also works through a Pharaoh who does not ever want to acknowledge that God is God. So much so that he hardens his heart, and in the hardening of his heart, God's plan starts to come to fruition. That God will even work his plan out regardless of who you are. So just let me throw this out there, God doesn't need you in his story. He wants you. He loves you. You would play a great role. But guess what? God doesn't need us. We need God. And we see this happen in this story. Pharaoh doesn't think he needs to be a part of all this, that he can just be who he is. God has different plans. This is what he says. So when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them to the road through the Philistine country. I forgot to give this glimpse of these people. Sorry. Let me go back. Realize that these Israelites have been in captivity for a long time. And they've been super oppressed. That's why their cries out to God have been heard. That's why Moses was called. I don't want to assume you all know the story. Because God hears the cry of his people, he sends Moses back. Have you ever been around people who have had very miserable lives? You don't have to answer. Some of us might be that person. Have you ever been a person who likes to have things look at you like you view the world as a victim? You've been around those people? The moment things start to get good, one glimpse of adversity, you go right back into the fact that you were oppressed for a really long time, and you say things like, ugh, I'd rather have been in my oppression, because at least then I knew what was going on, even though you've been pulled out of it. Okay. This is the group of people that God sent for Moses to work with. And there's a lot of them. Okay. So when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them to the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter. God said if they were to face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. This is the people. So he already knows these are my people. They've been through too much that if I give them any more than what they can handle currently, they're just going to give up and go back and just go back into their misery. He was protecting them, but in his protection had to lead them in a longer road to find his plan for them. Does that sound familiar for you? You say, God, it would have been a lot easier if we just did this. He knows that you couldn't have handled that road. He needed to guide you around so that you can really get it without giving up, because guess what? Sometimes we're kind of cowardly or we don't have that fortitude to make it through all the time. That's not to say that there weren't people in there. We find out about them in a different story we'll get to later. Okay. So God led the people around by the desert road toward the Red Sea, and the Israelites went up out of Egypt ready for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph. This is so cool. I forget. Let's do this. The reason that they were in Egypt is because Joseph was sold into slavery. Not all of you know the story. His brothers were awful. Sold him into slavery. They thought they got rid of him. Because Joseph loved the Lord, he climbed the ladder through slave to trusted advisor. So much integrity that he decided not to sleep with his boss's wife. Ran away from her. She lied about him. Then he went into prison. Then while in prison, he found out that God let him answer some dreams. So then Pharaoh says, hey, I have these dreams. You tell me what the dreams are about. People are like, that's impossible. This is a Cliff Note version, right? Go back and read this. I'm dramatizing this story. So he answers these dreams, becomes a top guy. It's like Pharaoh, Joseph. And they lived this beautiful life in Egypt. It was great. However, not all pharaohs care so much about what happens before. So after that one dies, the next one doesn't really care about Joseph. Boom, oppression happens. But Joseph made them promise that when God fulfills this plan to lead them where they're going to go, that you're going to take my remains with you. Because I am not from this place. I want to go home too. So Moses takes the bones of Joseph with him because Joseph had made the Israelites swear an oath. And he said, God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones up with you from this place. I just think it's cool that Moses, he doesn't know all this stuff yet. He was kind of living two worlds. His mom had to teach him all of the things about his people during that short amount of time that she got with him. It's incredible how much you can get from moms when you listen. I'll point back to myself. I was not good at that, but she was very graceful, merciful towards me. She didn't beat me too much about not getting it. I beat myself up by not trusting her. So after leaving Succoth, they camped in Etham, the edge of the desert. By day, the Lord went ahead with, this is so cool. Okay, by day, the Lord went ahead with pillar of cloud to guide them, and at night, it was pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could travel by day or night. It's so cool how God really makes his stamp here. You know I'm with you. I don't know how you can doubt this. However, when you are oppressed people, and you're not used to things going your way or really trusting anyone, you find reasons to doubt and not believe in anything, even when it's right in front of your face. You find ways to complain. So anyways, neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. They were truly, truly led, not by Moses, they were led by God out of Egypt towards the land that was promised to them. Now, here's this practical piece for all of you. There's going to be a time in your life that you're going to do so much, and you're going to know that it's good, and maybe God really put you in a place to serve some people, and you're trusting that, yeah, God, I'm going to do this. I'm going to jump out. And you know what's going to happen? No one's going to appreciate anything you're doing. It's just part of this weird world we live in. But can I give you just this great wisdom that I got from a beautiful lady named Pamela Crutcher? No, Crutcher McQueen. But this was before. She said, there's going to be a time in your life that you're going to be called to do something and you're never going to please everybody. But if you go through life trying to only please one, you can leave the end of the day feeling good about what you've done. And there's only one person we're here to please, and that's God. Moses is doing something that's so out of what he would rather be doing that he's taking this huge leap, even though he didn't want it. God, please don't, please don't, please don't. But he finally is making this jump. And he's trusting that the Lord is in control. And that he gave him these people, and then he's going to just pour into this and really do it. And he leads them to a spot, and this is the appreciation that he gets. So, listen here. They get to this end. The Red Sea is there. There's nowhere to go. Pharaoh decided No, we're going to go after these guys. I changed my mind. I don't want to let them go. Who's going to build all these pyramids? I don't know, whatever they're doing. We need to crack the whip on these people. We need to bring them back. We can't do all this work. So, as Pharaoh approached, the Israelites, they looked up, and there were the Egyptians. They were marching after them, and they were terrified and cried out to the Lord. I don't ever want to minimize, I was kind of making light of something, that I'm not trying to make light of this. There are times when we are stuck in really bad relationships, that we're stuck in really bad things, and you get some freedom, and then you look back and you see the one that has been kind of tormenting your life, and you crumble because you know what it's like if you're going to get back in there. And you're desperate, and you're like, please, God, don't do this. But then there's also a comfort in there, and that's why people stay in those relationships, because they know kind of how to handle that chaos a little bit. They don't know what freedom really looks like. And so they're like, okay, knowing what's going to happen sometimes is better than this unknown leap that I have to take. These Israelites are going through this in their hearts, and I can feel it. I can feel all of this pressure. And I would hate to make light of this because I know how terrified they are to see this group that has been an awful sense of what life looks like. But then they look at the unknown, and they only have one person to blame for taking them to where they're at in their minds. And to be honest, you would think maybe it's God. He led you here by this fire and this cloud. Nope. They put it all out on the one leading them. They said to Moses, was it because there was no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone. Let us serve the Egyptians. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. Do you see, when you're faced with adversity, how easy it is to look back at your jacked up past and to make it so beautiful again? They didn't tell them leave them alone. They were ready to get out of that place. They saw the power of God. They saw all the things that were going to lead them out. They were nervous and scared too, but they saw what God was doing. You can't avoid seeing those plagues. I think they were equally as traumatized as the Egyptians were to know that, wow, this God is powerful. And they saw Moses do some great things, right? He was like turning his staff into a snake and handed leprosy, like he learned all that stuff. It's cool. It's like magic tricks to know that God's with him. And they get to this point, and they have already lost sight of who led them. They lost sight that it was this crazy pillar of smoke and fire. God's with us. It's okay. And they immediately take it out on the one leading them where God has called them to lead. Anytime you are in the presence of somebody who is an elder or a minister of a church, give them a hug. They're going through this. It's not because we don't love you, but there are times that we're just the guy. God is the one in front. And we see that something is difficult and we go, shouldn't we have gone back where it was easy? Where we knew that we were going to get fed, we were going to get beat, and people were going to die, and life was miserable and nobody liked it, but at least I knew what was going to happen. And Moses is such a blessing for them. He says, don't be afraid, stand firm. You will see the deliverance of the Lord. What he's going to bring for you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. Sure, Moses. The Lord's going to fight for you. And look at this. You need only to do what? Man. Hey, when you go home today, just start singing that song to yourself. Just be still and know that he's God. That he's the way, the truth, and life. That he has such amazing things in store for you. But you and your brain and your mouth, it gets in the way. It gets in the way of seeing what God really is doing in you. God has such an amazing gift. And you might think you're at the dead end and all that's facing you is the one's ready to take you out. And you don't realize that God's ready to step out and some water is going to part and you're going to walk across it and not even get wet. And the ones that are after you are going to come after you. But God's going to do something that's incredible. Like I said, I couldn't do all the story. because some of you have plans for Mother's Day. You got to get to those reservations, and I don't want you to listen. But here, listen. On this crazy thing, God makes this huge cloud come out. And the Egyptians are chasing the Israelites, and the cloud that comes at them is darkness. And he also gives this huge cloud for the Israelites. And what that cloud does for them is it illuminates everything so they can see. So they see clearly, and they're like, yeah, we're out of here. And the Egyptians are like, we're going to kill you. I can't see anything, so they have to stop. And when they make it to the other side, they look back, and Moses comes back, and he does the cool wind blowing into the air, and staff comes down, and the water just goes, and just takes out all these Egyptians. And it's incredible. I'm going to fast forward in this story, but let me tell you this. The complaints don't stop there. They just got out of this terrible place, and they're free, and now they're hungry, and then God takes care of them. But they don't like that food. I'm tired of eating this bread. Can I have something better? They complain because they don't understand what it's like to just be okay and content. Because their hearts are in turmoil. They're still victims. They've got PTSD. They are struggling. But Moses keeps coming back with this gift of God. He keeps presenting it to them. But you know what? Sometimes a bitter and broken heart keeps you from seeing promised land. And sometimes the leader of this group, this is why we call Moses a not-so-superhero. In every superhero story, there's a transformation from a regular old person to somebody incredible. Now, some people are born with these gifts. Elsa from Frozen. Was she born with it, or is it a curse? Every mutant has some kind of thing that happened. But then a lot of them that we love and cherish, they were just normal people. And they went through this crazy transformation that made them awesome and great. Moses' transformation in the Bible might be the greatest transformation of any one person. We saw his beginnings. He goes up a raft, he gets taken in by the Pharaoh. He kills the guy, runs away. We have an impulsive, identity crisis, murderous person. Cowardly, runs away. And this transformation that happens later in this book of how God describes his friend Moses is something that makes him more special than any of the things that he could do. The powers that God gave him were nothing compared to the relationship that God put in his heart. And it's the same relationship that's gifted to each of us. When you start to do some great things for God, not only will the people that you're around start to question you, but even sometimes family members. And this is like the saddest story for me of Moses. It's not about these people being complainers. It's not about his life upbringing or doing the plagues and doing all this stuff. Moses chose to marry a woman who did not look like his people. She was a Cushite woman, Ethiopia. His his brother and sister did not like that. And they complained about it. So if you didn't notice, most likely she had darker skin than the rest of the group. And they were like, who dare does he think he is that he can marry this person? Now that's a side story to all this, to let you know that out of this conversation and this complaint and how they question who Moses is, God comes to the defense of Moses. And we see what transformation is laid out there because God is the one whose voice shares who Moses has become. Okay? So, quick recap of the stream. Raised in the temple. Castle. Doesn't know what he's doing. Murders somebody. Runs away. Called back to people. Frees them out of oppression. Is leading them forward. Has this moment. Miriam and Aaron, these are brother and sister, they began to talk against Moses because of his Cushite wife. For he had married a Cushite. This is where things start to get weird, right? Because he made a decision, they have now decided that he is no longer worthy to be the only one that God has chosen. Has the Lord only spoken with Moses? Hasn't he also spoken through us? And the Lord heard this. Any of you ever say something and didn't realize your parents were there? Somebody? You go, I was just kidding. I didn't say it. I'm just kidding.
And they pull you like this, and you go in there, and you feel terrible because they heard everything. Listen to this line. Does this describe the Moses we've been talking about up to this point? Now, Moses was a very humble man. This line, I wish we all could be described this way. But you can replace man with woman. It's okay. More humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. I'm sorry, he did not start that way. But all these chapters later, they question who Moses is, and this line comes in. And then God backs it up. At once the Lord said to Moses, Aaron, Miriam, come out to the tent of meeting, all three of you. This is the parent equivalent of, get over here, lean in here, come into my room. I have something to share. And this is not good. The Lord came down in a pillar of a cloud. Hey, that sounds familiar. And he stood at the entrance of the tent and summoned Aaron and Miriam. And when the two of them stepped forward, he said, listen to my words. This is how we all learn to be parents. So all you kids who are not parents yet, and your parents say, come here, listen to me. This is where we got it from. It's God's fault. Just take it. Listen. Listen to me. When there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, reveal myself to them in visions. I speak to them in dreams. But this is not true of my servant Moses. He is faithful in all of my house. With him I speak face to face, clearly and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? Other versions say, like, he's not just a prophet, he is my friend. When I speak to him, I actually come and I speak with him. Why are you not afraid of this? You want to know why they're not afraid? Because they have no connection with God like Moses does. They like what God has done for them, but they aren't willing fully to give themselves into what God has for them still. And we see this because what did Aaron do when Moses was gone for a little bit? He talked everybody into giving their gold so they can make a calf because God needed some help, so they're going to make another God to help God. Doesn't this sound weird that you can make God to help a God who made all of you? Right? But that's where they were at. This transformation is so incredible that God changed Moses to be this man that he never knew he was going to be when he was sitting at the foot of a burning bush, giving God all of the reasons why he was not this man. Each and every one of you here, I know, is good at giving excuses because, man, am I good at giving excuses, so I'm just going to generalize that to all of you. But can I leave you with this beautiful hope that God has for you? That your transformation, when you allow your heart fully to God, is going to be so incredible. That later in life, when you have this moment where people remember you too, they'll say things like, man, that Chris really loved God. And I saw it when he did this or that or whatever. When I saw really difficult situations, I remember Daryl would just be this voice of reason for me. I swear, it was like he was talking the words of God to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's going to be some times when you allow your pride to just go away, and then people start to see you as, that is the most humble person that I know that walked here. Coming from me, with some people in here who knew who I was, I'm just saying, God can do some amazing things when we allow our pride to go away. That when he calls you to something and you say, yeah, God, I'm ready, let's do this. You are going to see him in a way that you've never seen him before. And that's the challenge. Is your heart ready to be open fully to what God has to lead you to? You ready to accept that challenge? How about this? Even if you're not, maybe you're ready where Moses was. You weren't ready to accept the challenge, but you're ready to kind of close your eyes and step blindly in a leap of faith that God's just going to do something with your situation. We all start at different places, but we all are going to end in the same. That's our hope. That's our hope. Let's go to God in prayer. Now, Father, you're an amazing God. I love how you speak to us through the stories that you give us in your word. That somebody like Moses could do something so great, and he was an awful start, but what an amazing and great finish. That transformation, God, I pray that you put that in our hearts, that we don't conform to all the stuff of this world, but we can be transformed by the way that you change our thoughts and our ways and our actions. And God, when we stumble, I pray that you have a Moses-type person that's always reminding us, stand firm, be still, know that God is with you and will fight for you. Help us as we step out into that, God. I pray this in your son's name. Amen.